Hey guys, George here, and today what I'd like to do is bring to you a video about scenario Winter Melee lessons learned. So it's going to be a little bit of a chat and rant here and there, and hopefully we'll explore the scenario and what to do, what not to do as the German and Russian player. So with no further ado, let's get into it, and let's start with the victory objective, because the victory objective, I believe, is the most important thing to note. So, in terms of victory objectives, what your goal is to capture all 5 stone buildings. So there's 1 on board 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So basically, you're protecting the village. Nobody cares about the wooden buildings, but we care about the stone buildings because they can afford cover, possibly from potential counterattack, or what have you. And the Russian player, basically, it's a bit of a weird scenario because, as you can see, I have a little bit of a new writing tool. Now, these things are going to go all over the place, but it doesn't matter. Because the Russians, it's alternating setup. So the Russians set up first, and basically the partisans start by, the Russian partisans start by setting up on board 5, which was a board that was introduced by the game ed called Cross of Iron. So it's this scenario here. I can do this little scribble scrabble here, right? Now let's go back and just center these little dots here and go back to showing you a little bit of board 5. So the first item up for grabs is the Russians usually set up on board 5. More on that later. And attempt to infiltrate into the victory objective. Then the Germans set up, and that's another interesting phenomenon, because you'd say, okay, capture the victory location by the end of the game, and you'd think that, okay, in this case, even if I lose an objective, I might still have a chance to hop one of my surviving squads back into a victory location, and I'll be fine. But that's not the case, because you're dealing with a very meager OB for the German player. Whereas with the Russian player, you have a whole plethora of squads and very few, if any, good leaders. Plus you got paratroops. Plus you got paratroops. So initially the Russian sets up their partisans, then the German sets up, keeping in mind that the German will now move first, and then subsequently to that, you have Russian cavalry coming in from here. There you go. So it's a bit of a squeeze. Then starting on board on turn 2, 3, and 4. That's probably Arabic numerals. You have paratroops coming in. Let's do a little parachute here. And the unique thing about Russian paratroops is for drift, once you settle where the flight is going to come, for drift of the individual squads dropping, the extent of error is multiplied by 1.5, fractions rounded down. Okay, with that said, what do we do? Let's clean up the board. Let's see if we have a universal cleaning thingy here. Clear the screen. Let's clear it up. Oh, wow, beautiful. Okay, get rid of the um, um, printing tool. This is my my attempt to make my own scenario turn chart. I think I did a pretty good job, but I gotta get more acquainted with CSS. Now let's take a look at board 5, but before we get to board 5, let's look at our good old partisans. And our partisans are here, and there's a special rule relating to the partisans. If they suffer a certain number of casualties, they have to retreat back to board 5. You have 2 leaders. They're stealthy, and they can move through woods at 1 movement factor uh, despite ground snow. With ground snow, it doesn't really make a difference whether you're moving in woods or not. It only affects elevation. Going up and down a hill, it's an extra movement factor, but they come in on board 5. So let's put them on board 5 and talk more about these guys. Here we go. Now, here's the deal. There's a lot of players that try to set up the folks all the way up front on board 5. I'm dealing with a new vassal here. So let's zoom in a little bit. And you have to center the squad a little bit more than we're accustomed to. That should be big enough. So they tend to put them up front in the woods, because that's where they're most compatible, I suppose. And you tend to put the support weapons with squads that have leaders. There you go. It's not so bad once you get used to it, but it takes getting used to. There, and something to this effect. And with these units, they attempt to take on the German player. And the smartest move that I've seen playing this scenario several times is quite the opposite. Number 1 here, the ATR being here is invaluable because the German armored fighting vehicles are only half tracks with a very low amount of armor. So let's give this guy here. Let's try and put everything together. And as you notice, there's 3 excellent leaders on the German side, typical of early design videos, early design scenarios where the Germans were afforded some sort of advantageous OB and weaponry. I think the overall design of scenarios and squad leader, advanced squad leader, has changed a lot, and that would be an interesting conversation to have. How the scenarios have evolved over time. Possibly, I'm not the best person to do that. I would probably try to consult somebody that's been playing since 1983. Anywho, here's what could be a mistake for the German player. This Russian ATR is put there for a reason, to deny this height to the German player. nix on that. Because this thing here, all right, can conceivably take out the half-track effortlessly. So I would say this is an excellent move, okay? This, maybe not, okay? But what I've seen as the most effective tactic for the partisan is basically you deploy these units all over here, and you leave a token force lying around, okay? And you use them what they were intended for, okay? Um, they're in the woods, and you use them for what they were intended for. First, to act as a deterrent from any potential bold and audacious move by the German player into board 5. Secondly, you'll have paratroops coming in. This is why I love this scenario. So you have Russian paratroops coming in as 6 to 8s, right? And ideally, what I'm going to do to represent the 6 to 8s is I'm just going to duplicate the paratroop here and clone him and put him up here. 6 to 8s, so they're the maximum extent of their firepower, and I don't think they they may have three LMGs. So we're looking at a 4 hex range, okay? That would possibly bring up their, if they have an LMG, their firepower to a 4, and within a 2 hex range they have a firepower of 8, 8 with an LMG. Point blank fire would be 16, and a minimum of 12 if they don't have an LMG. All right, but what you're looking at here is you want to drop down on your objective. Where are you going to drop? You're going to drop in the open ground? Yeah, you're going to avoid any potential morale check, dropping into woods, any casualty reduction, right? But you're too far from your objective. Are you going to drop into the wooded area? Possibly, like along this road here. So basically, what you do when you're doing a wing is you check your drop point, and then you add sequentially 1 unit here, 1 unit there. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So conceivably, this could be an excellent drop point. You're dropping into cover, and then you take your units into here, and you capture the village. Sounds all nice and dandy, but the thing is, you're going to have drift, and you're going to have drift at a maximum extent of error of 1.5. So what happens if you're planning to drop in here, but your units actually land here, here, and here, and all over the place, right? What are these guys going to serve is by SSR, any Russian unit, 626, 2, 8, that drops into the woods can be escorted by this fellow. So 2 Russian 628s per partisan, and these guys will lend them the ability to travel 1 movement factor per hex, per wooden hex. If they go CX, they can go easily 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oops, 2 hexes back, right? So if your paratroops, oops, trying to get used to this thing, yeah. So if your paratroops, let's get that paratrooper counter. It tends to land here, but is scattered back. These guys can be used as guides to bring them to your objective a lot quicker. Plus, you're not going to attempt to take these guys out, these Germans out, with power factors. Okay, let's look at the other scenario. They stealthily come into board 3, pretend that they're all concealed, right? If you go into close combat with this fellow, he has a 1-to-1, and you in turn have a 1-to-2. Even with 2 squads, now you have a 3-to-2, 6-to-4, a 3-to-2, which really doesn't bode well. Plus, if you go in without a leader, and a leader exists in his hex, now it's a 1-to-2, a 1-to-2 -1 for the German, and a 3-to-2 flat for the Russian. So, what I'm saying here is use the partisans for what they were intended for. Is probably guides. Okay. And again, as the German player, do you really need to guard this hill? Is it to your advantage if these guys are going to threaten the heights here with an ATR? So your goal, I guess, for with the partisans is to deter the Germans, and also act as guides that will increase your movement for all the straight paratroopers that land off course. Now let's get to the cavalry. So the cavalry can come in galloping, and the cavalry are here 5-2-7s. By SSR, there's a distinction between each Russian unit type, and each of them, cannot form a fire group. Apart from the partisans not being able to form fire groups, different squad types cannot fire group together as well. What happens to the mandatory fire group rule in that case? I don't know. I never encountered that situation. But the first challenge that will arise will be these guys coming in, which is the cavalry, and they have up to 20 movement factors galloping. So you got 4, 8, 12. The partisans have already established themselves north of the village. Let's say, is this north? Yep, north of the village. So you're being sandwiched as a German player. And these boys, and how conveniently did I forget that you can replace the 8-0 leader with a 9-0 commissar. These guys are going to pose a threat to the southern flank of the German player. And what do the noobs do? What do the newbies do? They take the half track. They forget to deploy. Okay. So deployment is essential because this guy has 6 firepower factors alone. Grouping them 7 plus 4 is 11. You're losing 9, 10, 11, 3 firepower factors. Whereas if you deploy the squad, half squad and clone, give a half squad a heavy, put your best leader with them. Geez, very picky. Okay, and then medium here, stack a nice leader with them. Now you're dealing with a full 4 firepower factor attack here, and a full 6 firepower factor attack here, and basically you've just gained for the firepower that you've lost, because we have to take into consideration that the inherent firepower of the half squad cannot be used if they use a support weapon, except I guess in defensive fire phase if they only mark with first fire. You've gained two locations from where you can defend from without using a full squad. So you freed up another squad to assert more firepower from another location. So let's see where people that are new to this scenario, what they do is um, I'll get a second level counter. Of course, now he can see everything, right? Fire. Of course, up here, now you can see everything. It looks like a great position to be in, right? And I would venture to put the other guy on the second level as well. Clone. Oops. And, there you go. Got it my first try. So basically, what do we got here uh, is the ability to cover this area here and that. However, that may not be the smartest move that I could do, because this fellow here, he's firing out of a stone building with a heavy. This guy is covering with a medium. And what if the Russian player decides to come in from two different directions? His covered arc can end up being fixed, so he can't swing that thing around freely. And the same thing would hold true for this fellow. Okay? So where's my covered arc counter? Here. Under gun. Here. This thing. This is what I'm talking about. Okay? Kaboom. Now all of a sudden, okay, all of a sudden, his covered arc is fixed in this direction. And your Ruskies can come in, kaboom, up the woods into that building, and then gain wall advantage here and press their attack into the village like this. So what I considered, let's trash all these things, what I considered was instead um, I'm guessing you're catching my drift. Ah, like I said, it needs, you need to get used to this new vassal module. I'm running 668, I believe. According to Doug Rimmer, 669 should be coming out in the fall of 2024. All right, so you're catching my drift. Keep in mind that the German player moves first, so you can keep him in a position like this, or like that. I would venture to put him like this. Now, you move first, and you can shift your attack or you shift your position. But in this particular instance here, you can conceivably be in a position to form a fire lane. Sorry, just like that. Okay, and you don't have to worry about this guy being um, charged that. He can be charged that, but take your half tracks. Remember, the covered arc of your half track here doesn't really matter because it's an AA gun. So put him on the height and put him here on the height. The reason why I'm putting him here is because uh, at this uh, uh, at this location, he can cover here and he can cover that attack. And this fellow here, they pretty much have everything covered. Um, Now, the other thing that you can do is instead of putting them on the low ground, on the first player turn, this guy could move into this woods here, and he has a great vantage point. Um, let's. The other thing here is if you're not comfortable leaving this guy here, you can also put him on top on the height. Put the half track on top of him, and then once he finishes uh, knocking out everybody that's advanced here, he can subsequently uh, go around and reposition here, or he can reposition there, all depending on where the attack is coming from, right? Um, the other thing you can do with a half track is use its mobility. So pretend there's a squad in there. Let's clean up the board. Just put them off to the side and then bring them around in such a way that you prevent the route from going back, from units from routing back, as long as they can see them. The chances of that happening are pretty bleak um, because all the woods kind of block the line of sight to any plausible location. But at the same token, if some paratroopers are landing here, he can use his AA gun, he can use his LMG, their inherent firepower. So if they're, for example, here, the squad can have 2, 4, 6. Okay. Uh, the LMG will have a bigger radius, and the AA gun has a range of 12, so it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We might as well now make a little bit of a happy face there. So that's what the German player is looking at. Um, Now, from the Russian perspective, um, what I see happening is um, best to get into the village, and I could be wrong on this, but best to get into the as close to the village board as possible. What the heck is going on here? Okay, okay. Get into that village as quickly as possible. Are you going to take casualties? Of course you will. Come in with a gallop. G A L L O P. If an opportunity arises, um, do charge if that opportunity is given to you. The other the other thing that I'm not very familiar with, and I'll have to admit it, is a cavalry wave. Now, every time I've attempted a wave, I got annihilated. So I hate waves. I hate them with a passion. But get as close to the objective as possible. Now, paratroops, keep in mind, stop doing that, George. Keep in mind that you only have two firepower factors, and each wing, each drop point has to be 5 hexes apart. So you got excellent drop zones right in the village. Here's one, right? You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Here's another. It has to be 5 hexes away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's another. And if they all make it, if one wing is here, or one paratroop is here or here, some of the hexes adjacent to them are free, and if they made it and without breaking, they have the ability, I think after the defensive fire phase is over, to move one hex, or the advancing fire phase, to move one hex before ultimately dropping into the ground. This is a great place to hex, to drop. You don't have to take a morale check, and you're afforded a +1 DRM for being in a shell hole. This is a nice place to drop as well, because you're surrounded with a hedge. Here you got a wall, but I'm not too sure what good it will serve. But in the following phase, all you got to do is assault move to there, and you got an objective. Same thing here. You can assault move here, and all of a sudden, you got 2 out of the 5 victory locations. And here, are we 5 away from one another? Drop zone here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're not completely hopeless. And if your paratroops land safely, you got a bunch of 6 to 8s that are all nuts, crazy killers going after Germans. Oh, let's clean that up as well. Yep. Now, you get a guy like that. Come over here, you pop off. You got a unit like this right in your, if you're lucky enough, right in the middle of your victory location. Boy, is he going to be hard to eliminate. Yeah. Now, there are caveats to cavalry and paratroopers. I believe paratrooping is hazardous movement, so there's a -2 DRM. Riders in themselves, they also have a special -2 DRM. So every ounce of fire against the cavalry with a -2 DRM, you can be pretty lucky as a German player. And if you're using your support weapons and you're directing fire at the right folks, you'll do well. Now, I do like selective targeting, meaning that I try to hold my fire for high value targets like leaders. Okay, but if you exercise too strict of fire discipline, you might end up not killing enough multi-man counters, enough squads to make your life easy. So at the first phase, as the German player, Blues for German, is try to eliminate leaders. Yep. Hopefully you'll keep rate. And try to reduce the amount of multi-man counters that ultimately um, will reach your victory location to try and eliminate you. Get rid of them to the best of your ability. Now, um, having said that, there's always this concept of Murphy's Law. So you have a good plan, you thought about the pros and the cons of everything, and at the end of the day, if you're rolling 10s, 11s, and 12s, you've done the best you could, and better luck next time. That's all I can say. I'm certainly in a position where I can say I still have a lot more to learn when it comes to playing a scenario of this nature, of this magnitude, with this sort of OB. Um, but it's really interesting. And to think that a battle of this nature actually took place, and ultimately I believe it was a tactical loss for the Russians because they had trouble coordinating with all their movements with the different type of units. Um, but let's face it, we're talking about 1942 in Okorovovo, Russia. Eventually, they got the Germans on the run. There was more Russians than there were bullets. So that's that. Now, having said that, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any input about the scenario that originally came out with the Cross of Iron module way back when in the late 70s, please drop me a comment below and um, do do mention uh, um, um, the whereabouts of this channel to other people. I would greatly appreciate it. We're up at approximately 865 subscribers, and this channel originally had only 10 way back when I started it with no particular goal. And at that time, I actually was not into squad leader or actually advanced squad leader. I only possessed squad leader and the Cross of Iron module. And thanks to a couple of online friends here and there, not only has my knowledge grown and my gameplay improved, um, I'm having fun doing it. And I hope uh, whatever game you like playing, you're having fun as well. That said, thank you one and all, and see you next time. Take care.